to the top. We got so far to go, even farther back to home. So many times we could have stopped when we got stuck in the mud and we felt like giving up. But this is our road, and y'all are my people. No matter where we go, never alone. No, we're not gonna stop till we get to the peak. Going high, 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 gonna fly through the ether.
Hello, and welcome to Notes from the Healing Field, a safe space for self-healers to explore their own journey. I am Krista Xiomara, your host and guide. The intention of this podcast is to create an open source spiritual classroom for every sentient being who's navigating the human experience. Together, we will examine themes of awakening, healing, and integration. We will use our curiosity as our guide on this path of expansion and compassion as our compass. All the information shared is open source and free to everyone, and is intended to support the collective awakening and liberation of humanity, in harmony with our highest shared desire for peace on earth. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's get into it. Healing and dating, and those two things combined. Since Notes from the Healing Field is about self-healers, most of us are doing this work in parallel with each other's personal lives and romantic lives and all of the things, and sometimes that can be a lot to manage. So I wanted to bring Laura Forbes on the show to discuss how do we stay true to the internal healing we need, whether that's from past relationships or trauma, and how do we apply those lessons in our dating life, which can also be a little tricky. So Laura, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to speak to you.
Yes, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Right out the gate, I want to talk about dating and healing, and sort of what are your top 5 or top 3 things that you would say are things to think about when you're dating, but you're also on a healing journey.
Okay, cool. So that's a big, juicy question. So top things to think about, I would say, are like having some compassion and space for yourself. So sometimes the healing journey can take longer than we would like. And obviously, if we're trying to date at the same time, just kind of being honest with ourselves about where we're at and whether we might want to take a little step back from dating at the moment, or whether it's something we want to kind of do. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be as well, in terms of where we're at and what we attract. So sometimes it is beneficial to take a little step back to kind of clear our energy and to work on a few things before kind of getting back out there and trying to line up with someone or attract someone, because we tend to attract where we're at, right? Like that saying of, we don't get what we want, we get what we are. So sometimes, taking that time to lay the groundwork can actually be more beneficial. I've worked with clients in the past that said, I'm getting older and I don't want to waste time, but kind of getting caught up with someone who's not compatible or getting hooked up into something that's not necessarily healthy because there's still unhealed parts can actually be a lengthy detour. So sometimes taking that time is actually quicker. And what else did I say? A third point would be to kind of have those uncomfortable conversations. So whether it's with yourself or with your partner, sometimes when we're with someone, it's a great mirror for like reflecting back where we've still got work to do or where there's still some wounding. So taking advantage of that as well.
Yeah, those are really great. I think it's really interesting to think about, we've heard this adage of like you become the partner you're seeking, and that's how you sort of attract that same energy, and to take a step back and see where that work needs to be done. I was interested in when we talk about getting into relationships, dating has just changed so much. I know for myself, so I was married from about 21 until about 32. And so I never experienced online dating until I got divorced. And it was right at sort of like, I would say, the inception of online dating when I came out of my marriage. And it was just so weird and crazy. And I just feel like it's gotten even more crazy. And there's also like depending on what region you're in, what place you're in. Specifically, I live here in Austin. I'm in a relationship, but there's what's called too much supply and not enough demand. So there's so many single people here, and that can be incredibly frustrating on the dating path because there's so many options for people to choose from. They're not really interested in making hard and fast decisions about being serious or like not taking it casual, or taking it too casual or whatever the case may be. So for you, what are you finding on the lay of the landscape with your clients that like talk to you? What are the challenges they're seeing, and what advice can you offer for anyone trying to navigate the crazy world of online dating apps?
Okay. So the lay of the land is, I think a lot of people are tired from the dating apps, and there's a whole bunch of different reasons for that, but I think a lot of people are tired in general at the moment. And if you think about the energy that it takes to like swipe through a whole bunch of different faces, and even though we can do that pretty quickly, it's still like a lot of information that we're processing, even on a subconscious level, to make that yes or no decision. Or if we go in a bit deeper and look at the profile and we're like trying to assess, does this person fit with my life? And it's like almost, looking at what's on offer, going, can I make that fit? And sometimes that can also be quite a disempowering or depressing sort of experience if you're not seeing compatible options. But we only need one, right? So, well, most people. So with that, I think going a bit larger, like bigger perspective, and not getting kind of caught up in what's available, on the apps and stuff, and just taking a step back and going, what do I actually want? What's the experience I want? What's the feel that I want? And the energy that I want from a relationship. And then opening up to, like, that can come from anywhere. So a lot of the time, the lay of the land with clients that I work with is they come to me exhausted and they've had bad experiences. And it's about kind of like just taking a step back to heal and process that, and then getting really clear and getting that clarity on what you want instead, and then trusting that that can come to you from lots of different avenues. So often clients will have like surprising stories of like they've been introduced to someone or met someone in a random place that they wouldn't have necessarily thought. And it's just once you open yourself up to those possibilities, things can unfold wonderfully.
Yeah, and I feel like people have gotten so used to the dating apps that there is, I think, probably the perception that you can never meet anybody organically, but that's how we all, used to do it. That's how we were all birthed into this world. Our parents somehow met organically, and here we are.
Exactly. Yeah.
I wanted, yeah, the next place I wanted to go with this in terms of healing, which I think is very important. And I don't know if there's hard and fast rules in dating, which is like when you start to date somebody and you all agree to be exclusive and serious with one another, the pace at which you are moving that relationship, and examples of that would be like moving in together, like sharing money, sharing vehicles, like whatever the case may be. Are there any general things to watch out for, to be concerned about, to sort of keep yourself in check, especially if you're trying to heal yourself and you may have some codependency healing stuff that still needs to go. You have abandonment issues, like things that are going to pop up if you are experiencing super closeness with somebody.
Yeah. So again, there's a lot to kind of factor in there. A wonderful saying I heard once, and I have no idea where it came from or who it originated from. They said, don't make any major decisions and commitments with someone until you've taken a full trip around the sun with them. Meaning, like, until you've seen someone in different seasons, until you've seen them in different experiences, different emotional states. Don't be rushing into making those big, commitments in terms of like joint finances and stuff like that. I know that's not always, doable. Sometimes life kind of throws a bit of a curveball and kind of forces some things to happen a bit sooner than you might otherwise like, circumstantially. But I think really coming back to yourself and working out what pace feels right. So again, that's why the healing component's important, because when we have unhealed parts, sometimes we're just like rushing in based on chemistry versus compatibility. And obviously, long term, that's not going to be the best recipe for a fulfilling, harmonious relationship. So I would just, like with my clients, I give them a bit of like a due diligence checklist and say, like, right, there's some questions on here and you're not going to be able to answer them all right now. Sometimes it takes time to, gather the information. You need more time, more, experiences with this person to answer these questions. And once you've answered all of the questions, that's kind of like your due diligence done on, like, is this person a match? Is this person the best fit for me? And are we compatible on all the, areas that matter? So I think, again, just try not to rush ahead. And in terms of finances and stuff, that's all personal preference, right? So it's about, working out what's best for you.
Yeah, so basically to just reiterate what you said is making sure that we're checking in with ourselves and feeling that it's in alignment with what we want. I know that in relationships we can oftentimes get pressurized into things, and sometimes we'll acquiesce because we want to make our partner happy or it's so new. And I think all of us experience that early on in relationships. It's walking a tightrope of like the give and get kind of balance point there.
Yeah.
But to your point, what you're saying is like just keep coming back and checking in with yourself if this feels okay, if this is what you want, and using that as a calibration to make decisions, right?
Yeah, and I think with that, emotional regulation, the ability to emotionally regulate is super important, because without that, you're going to kind of, like you said, sometimes acquiesce to please the other person or do something that you don't necessarily feel comfortable with. So it's about holding space for, what feels right for you. And if something's coming up that feels uncomfortable, like maybe the other person's wanting to move too fast, or even, you're wanting to move faster than the other person's willing to go, having time to kind of sit with that and take stock of that separately from the actual issues at hand.
Okay, I've got one more serious question, and then I want to talk about some fun things about dating, not just keep keep going on of like all the warning flags you need to be watching out for. The one thing I wanted to talk about that I think is a big topic in dating and psychology and personal development is our attachment styles, which for like I guess the short end of it is the attachment we learn in our early family experience, and then that sort of formulates into our other relationships, not even just our romantic relationships, but friendships and work situations. And it's important, I think, for people to understand what that is, because there is a lot of unconscious behavior and actions that can come out of that. What do you want to say to people about knowing this about themselves as they're going into the dating scene, and how they can incorporate some additional healing modalities and tools when their attachment styles get agitated?
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, kind of knowing where you sit on the attachment, scale. So obviously we've
Matrix.
got, yeah, exactly. So, and again, when we're talking about attachment styles, pretty much no one is like 100% one thing, right? So if someone's coming across
Yes.
with like anxious tendencies or secure attachment style, if you think of it as a pie chart, like it's normally not going to be 100% one thing. There's going to be a split between all of them. And again, like nervous system regulation, when we're in stressed states, or we're tired or hormonal or agitated or whatever, that can also impact on how stressed we are, and then how we're going to kind of maybe fall into certain patterns. So having an awareness of that is super useful. And then you can use it as like a guideline to navigate. If you're aware of like, the tendencies that you might have, depending on where you sit in those different attachment styles, then you're going to have more awareness of when those things are playing out. So you can take a step back and respond versus reacting and playing out the same old patterns that might not be serving you.
Yeah, that's really good. We'll leave it there with the serious questions because I don't want to just keep it negative and glum and dumb. But I did want to ask you in terms of dating, I think we also as a culture just tend to pressurize ourselves about, and especially because we've been sort of indoctrinated with this idea of like finding the one and like happily ever after and all of the things that are in our collective consciousness that pressurize us. But how can we like remove that pressure and go into dating as something fun and experiential. Like, I think that's one of the things I learned when I was dating, is that it was like not about trying to find the one, but it was about having interesting experiences and meeting people from all walks of life and being incredibly curious about how they became the person they were and everything that they are. And then having fun, doing fun things with them was really, an added bonus to dating. So, what do you have to say about that in terms of the overall dating experience?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, again, a lot of dating and finding and attracting the right person comes down to alignment. So if we're living in alignment with our own values and we're, living that full life, then we're putting ourselves in that best position. And then we're going to, line up with people and have experiences with people. And whether that's, just a short exchange in messages, or you go on 1 or 2 dates, or it turns into something wonderful, like, we can always take something from that and, like, always leave people better than we found them, right? Through having those collaborative growth and life experiences and sharing and just having fun. Because if we've got to go on dates and stuff, we might as well be having fun with that while we're doing it.
Yeah, and how can people find ways to keep it light when they're dating early on? Like, do you have any tips or tricks about how to just remove that pressure from yourself as you go on dates, and just like the nerve-wracking anxiety you feel having to go on, like, 5 first dates with people?
I always think, and again, it's probably a bit more serious than fun, but like, in order to put yourself at ease and like set yourself up for those experiences, safety is important, right? Because unless we feel safe, we're not gonna really feel comfortable doing certain.
Relax.
Yeah, so say for example, if it's online dating, I always advise people to do a quick video call first, so that you've at least broken the ice, because there's nothing worse than turning up on a date and realizing there's zero attraction there, and you're like, if I'd have known this, or if I'd have heard their voice or whatever before that we met, I would have probably not bothered to come in, and can save each other time that way. So that kind of thing, and then just keep it light and just think, like, what are some things that I want to do, or like go for a walk and just kind of connect and chat that way before you get into like the dinner dates and the more serious stuff.
Yeah, I used to have a rule when I was dating that I would give everybody a 3 date chance, because
Okay.
I always felt like if we got to the first date, if we got to the first date, it's always awkward, and like sometimes you're on your best behavior, sometimes you're very nervous, and you don't really get a good gauge. And if somebody is willing to go out on another date with you, the second date can be a little bit more comfortable. And then by the third date, I think it's pretty solid if you're either attracted to this person or you want to know more about them. And so partway through my dating experience after my divorce, was like, forcing is a strong word, but encouraging myself to go on at least 3 dates with one person that I was interested in, so that I could get a better gauge. Because I think also too, we have this very discriminating sort of attitude when we're dating on the apps, that it's very easy just to discount everybody. And I would do it too. So I include myself in there as well. And I was like, well, I probably need to give people more of a chance, for myself. And I thought that was really good early on in my dating experience. And it did give me the opportunity to feel more relaxed and more, I think, just chill about the whole dating experience. That's
Yeah.
that's my dating advice, unsolicited dating advice.
But what I would add to that as well is, I think, again, when it comes to dating advice, I really don't think it's like a one size fits all. So I think there'll be
No.
maybe some people listening to this who need to do the opposite and need to like shut people down quicker and like rule things out quicker.
Hmm.
And then there will be people like like what you just said there, that maybe have done that too quickly in the past and need to give people more time. So it's about like working out, what are the strengths that you need to work on, and rolling with that.
Yeah, for sure. And then as far as having fun on dates, what are things that you've heard from your clients that have made really spectacular dates, and made them so that they are fun, and that it's not just a pressurized moment of dating?
Do you know what? Like, I think the ones that are more fun are the ones where there's just the connection. And it's like you could be doing anything. You could literally just be going on a dog walk, having a quick, 20-minute coffee, because that's all the time that you've got that day. or whatever. And I think it's more about the connection than the actual activity. And like, it's not always about the big expensive things, right? Sometimes it's about packing up a little picnic and going somewhere. Or obviously like there's the bigger, more exciting dates where people have gone away for weekends and stuff like that, or on like spontaneous little trips. But again, I don't think it's one size fits all. I think it's like one of those things that it's personal preference and what works for people. But the kind of general consensus is it's people when they're with the right person and the connections there, that's what matters most.
Yeah. Yeah, well, wonderful. So, is there anything else that we want to tell people who are just wading into the dating world after a breakup, after a divorce, and then any other advice you might have as we give this bonus content a little extra oomph before we sign off?
What advice I would give to someone wading in? Well, I would say gonna need a sense of humour to keep you going, because obviously, like, we've both been there, right? We've been on the dating scene, we've used online dating apps and stuff before, and it can get, tiresome. So don't be afraid to take little breaks. Kind of go in with low expectations and feel it out, but keep in mind like what it is you're ultimately wanting. And even if you're not having great success on the dating apps, don't let that deter you from knowing that you can actually have the relationship that you want. It might just be that you're not going to meet them on an app, and to keep your options open and get out and about in other ways of life as well, I would say. What would you say? What advice would you give to someone wading in?
I think that having not high expectations is key. I would definitely echo that. I think that's key because we basically set ourselves up for disappointment. So I think it's managing our own expectations, number one, full stop in any area of our life, but especially dating. And I think, like what you mentioned earlier about getting very clear about what you're looking for is also incredibly key because I feel like if you don't know what you want, and I can speak from my own personal experience, like I didn't know what I was looking for after I was divorced, you can find yourself in relationships that are not really conducive to you as a person, to your lifestyle, to your own value system, and you can be in it and know it's not going anywhere, and that's not really fair to either of the people in the relationship. I think the other thing too is just being comfortable with yourself as a person and being comfortable being alone. I know you and I have talked a lot about this offline. For me, because of the way I was raised and indoctrinated, there was this like very clear trajectory that was set for me that like I grow up, I go to college, I get married, and I have babies. And there was never a singular moment on that trajectory that said, Krista, you have to be alone and you have to go find yourself and figure out who you are without all of these things that society says. So I think it's worth anybody's while, whether that's a short little burst of time or even a year, just to be on your own to really solidify who you are as a human being and really becoming deeply authenticated to yourself and aligned with who you are so that you stay an anchor in yourself in your relationship when you get into one, because I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, definitely important to take time to get to know yourself, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I had a wonderful time with you. Why don't you tell everyone listening where they can find you online and how they could work with you if they want some help in the dating world?
Okay. So you can find me online. I kind of hang out mostly on Instagram. So it's at quit dating idiots, little underscore between quit and idiots. Or you can find me on quitdatingidiots.com. And if you'd like to book a complimentary discovery call, you're more than welcome to do that. There'll be a link on the website where you can do that.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for doing this bonus content with me and helping all the self-healers out there navigate not just self-healing, but dating and self-healing, which tend to cross over if you're doing this work at all. And I really appreciate everything that you're contributing to the collective with the work that you do.
Perfect. Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Bye, Laura.
Bye.
This podcast was written, directed, and produced by me, your host, Krista Xiomara, in alignment with light casting. Original song Soar, composed and produced by Sing Hits, with lead vocals by X. Rack up some good karma by sharing this podcast with another self-healer. You can find Notes from the Healing Field on all social media channels and YouTube. Head over to your favorite podcast app and subscribe, rate, and review.
All the small wins give us hope, little signs to let us know that we're not so far away. Yeah, yeah.